used for charity purposes, and we both went there for a music seminar, which lasted 7 days. And this was outside the movement. It was arranged by a charity to support students to develop their musical skills. I almost didn't go because I didn't play any musical instrument for a long time. But when I went to the charity person who suggested it to me, I said no, and then she started to cry, like someone died. So even her colleague asked her if she was okay. It was really strange. So 2 weeks later I said, I'd like to do this course, and she said that it was in a convent, so I immediately knew that it would be related to God. And my preparation up until that point also was, since I was very young, but these 2 weeks before the convent, I'd been specifically looking to meet someone that I'd been searching for them for 2 years before then, because I met my spiritual parents 2 years earlier. Is that okay?
That's great.
It's okay. I saw them spiritually. I could perceive them. There was a second generation couple, and they were very, very bright, spiritually brighter than anyone I'd seen before. Even older people who had been meditating their whole lives were not as bright as this young couple. So I was very attracted to them, but I didn't approach them because I had some problems within myself, my personality, and I can show you some examples later. But I wasn't able to approach them, so then when I lost them, I felt like I'd missed out on my life opportunity, because I had actually been searching for absolute truth since I was around 12 years old. And I felt meeting them was the conclusion of that, but I missed it. So then since that point, I really invested in trying to find them again, or trying to find this feeling that I missed out on when I didn't approach them. So in that 2-year period, I started investing in my spiritual practice a lot more. I was signing on to the dole, to the government to pay me, kind of just to try to find a job, which I wasn't trying to find a job, but I was trying to find what I missed. But by having the dole, I could have a lot more time to actively pursue that, while also not being homeless. So it kind of helped me in that way. During that 2-year period, I started getting really deep in my practices, and I was meditating on average 8 hours a day in one sitting. Quite often I would sit for 12 hours just praying and meditating. And the 6 months before I met my spiritual parents again, I was fasting. I was eating rice and drinking water and nothing else. And also doing the meditating for a long time. And that kind of practice will, I think, would make anyone experience the spirit world. So it's really like the level of your practice and the duration, like how long you do it, because someone might do that for a week or so and not get any effect. But they could do it for 8 days and then they get the effect. So, each of us has our own personal providence that God is working with us, and we have to fulfill certain time periods in order to reach a certain point. And sometimes you do something for a couple of years and nothing's happening, and then miraculously after 7 years something happens. I've heard so many testimonies from families about that. And I've also got my own testimonies about these time periods, which I can explain probably tomorrow, I think, is about my own. I've called it God's Providence or Restoration in James Powell's family. It's not only part of the principle, but it's very insightful. Because I love the numerical aspect of God's providence. Somehow I feel connected with numbers, but in the sense of patterns and shapes and the geometry of numbers, rather more than the counting. Because I'm not so good at math, but I can recognize patterns. And then I also count in shapes. So like if I count 10, for example, I see a circle is 10, I divide it by half, I can see 2 halves, it's 5 each, and it's like a visual way of counting. When I was meditating, I found consistently that it would take me 40 minutes to lose total awareness of my physical body and my environment. And then I would enter the spirit world, and I would totally have a totally different environment. And that would be consistent. I did that hundreds of times and would expect it on the 41st minute, and I would enter the spirit world. So when I joined the movement, I read about the providence, 40 is separation of Satan in the body. Then it fitted perfectly with my experience of meditating and having to go beyond my body. Because when you meditate, you get like some kind of itch, and if you scratch the itch, you get 2 itches, and it just multiplies. So you have to ignore them, and it's really like terrible. Sometimes you just, it's like you can't do it. But if you really push yourself, amazing things can happen from that. So I think what Michael wants me to talk about is just an introduction about myself, like how I joined it as well. So I've had spiritual experiences since I was as young as I can remember. And my first memory was when I was 2. And I remember it because before I was 3, we moved from the house where I had the experience to another place. Like my mum told me where, at the time that we moved from. Is that okay? Yes. Does it sound okay? Yes. Okay, cool. So my father would drive to work, and there was a motorway bridge, like a highway, that went along past the side of our house. And he would drive along on the motorway, and this one morning he was going to drive slowly and wave to me through the window, like just to me, so I was looking forward to that. And I was playing out in the garden at the front, and my mother was inside the house, and she called me in to say, "James, come on, your father will be here," And I was really impatient, because I was a little boy and I couldn't wait. So I wanted to go back outside to play in the garden, but my mother was quite strict, and she said, "James, be patient, your father will be along shortly." And so I waited and waited, really had to push myself to wait. And then my father came past and he waved at me, and I experienced so much joy. It was so amazing that my parents cooperated, and I could experience that joy. And I feel that intense emotion was the reason I remembered that experience at such a young age. You could have a bad emotion or a good emotion, but if it's intense, then that memory will stick. And I'm happy to have a good memory. That's my first one. But I feel that was like a direction from God, like that. When I've been through difficult times in my life, I've always remembered that memory, and it's always kept me my life in perspective. It's helped me to keep my direction and to think I will reach this point, some point in the future. Like that was like metaphorically implied by saying your father will be along shortly. Okay, I've got some pictures. I can show you a picture that I drew when I was in school of the spirit world. Let's see if I have it on my laptop. Sorry, I'm not totally prepared yet to give slides, but I did this around 15 years of age, and this was when I was in like my first or second year of high school. It's like secondary school. I just drew this at home. I drew half of it, and then I took it into school. I wanted to show my art teacher, and art class was my favorite class. And I was hesitating to show my teacher, but I was looking at the picture in my bag, and she saw me, and she encouraged me to show her. So I did, and she actually said, "Well done." She congratulated me and told me if I finished it, then she would give me the best mark. So I finished it, but I didn't take it back in. So I felt like that was enough. And I felt like it wasn't something to be, like what's the word, qualified or, and the standard was not based in the physical world, by what someone says. I felt that this was my first true drawing, because it really came from within myself. So then, later I realized that what it is, it's about good spirits and evil spirits, and there's like white spirits, which are good ones, and then there's the darker ones. And there are actually a couple of spirits which are connected. Let's try it. Can anyone see the connected ones? Is It's really difficult to find. It could be behind the text, but there's a couple there whose like tales basically kind of connect. So that was my spirit world at age 15, and it's not too clear. Like they look like ghosts. It says in the principle that ghosts are evil spirits, basically. The spirits whose appearance is unclear. So also when I was in school, this was based on some experiences I had in the playground when I could see all the children play, like my own age, and I would stand against a wall, like with my back against the wall, so that there would be protection, like no spirits could come from behind me. In a way, I'd have this protection of the wall, and then I would, so I could be aware of everything from in front. And then I would also close my eyes, and I found that if I closed my eyes and ignored the spirits, like I didn't pay any attention to them, then they wouldn't attack me, because when I looked at them, they would try to attack me. So this was happening before I drew this picture, so it was around age 10 or 12, and I kind of was developing like a spiritual self-defense in a way, of like ignoring the spirits, and I really had to change my focus. Even if you close your eyes, you could still be aware of something, but you have to really bring it within yourself. So I became really introverted at a young age, really inside myself. And also when I was, before I was a teenager, a lot of the other children would ask me questions like, why is your face red? Why are your teeth brown? Because I've got like a red face sometimes because it's really bright red. My teeth are brown because the top layer of the enamel is transparent, so you can see the next layer, which is brown. Everyone has it. It's just, with me you can see it. But the children thought I didn't brush my teeth. And when I would ask my parents why my teeth are like that, they wouldn't give me an answer, they didn't have one. So I had all these children asking me questions like every single day, many times. And I felt so insecure because of that. I didn't have an answer, and they just felt like they were criticizing me, like picking on me, but they could just be curious, Maybe they just wanted to know, but I really didn't feel like it. Because of these things, I was really, like I said, inside myself, try to avoid people. And that made me self-aware from a young age as well. People asking me questions, why are you like this? Why are you that way? So I was asking myself this all the time, being faced with these questions. So I think due to that, I left home at age 15 as well, at a young age, because I had so many questions. I couldn't find answers to them at home, so I said bye-bye. My parents divorced when I was 10. I left home when I was 15, so I kind of moved out of my mother's house to my father's house for a couple of years, and then I moved out into a shared house with my siblings and some friends. And even since I was young, I never drank alcohol or smoked or anything. I just didn't like it. I tried some wine when I was younger, and I just liked the taste, so I just never tried anything else. And that kind of helped a lot as well. So I felt a lot of spiritual protection, from the spirit world and things about keeping a certain standard. Also, when I was 7, we call it junior school. I'm not sure what you call it in America. Like for around age 7. Elementary school? Right. Yeah, it makes more sense. We say secondary school as well. But anyway. When I was 7, we had this Christmas pantomime, like a Christmas show in the school, and the teacher and the student were preparing the stage, and there was a baby Jesus in the crib, and he had the manger and everything, and I was walking through the hall, and I looked at like the eyes of baby Jesus, like a plastic baby Jesus. And I kind of went into this weird, like, spiral tunnel, like loads of light just spiraling in the tunnel. I think there's something like that in the films somewhere. And I just went in, I came out of the other end, and when I came out of the other end, I saw thousands of people, like men and women, black suits and white dress, standing in front of a stage, and on the stage God was on the stage. There's a big, giant ball of light, shining light. I think I have a picture on my laptop I can show you. So, yeah, on the left, that's what I saw when I was 7. This is a simplified version. So, yeah, I was around 6 or 7 at the time, and I asked, what is this? And I received the reply, this is a God-centered marriage. And then the voice also asked me, do you want this, James? And I kind of took a step back, and I'm like, I'm like 7, a little bit young maybe, but I was, then they asked me a bit more strictly, like, James, do you want this? And I considered it. I felt this was like the love that I was seeking, that I never felt before. This felt like, I honestly could say before I even heard of between true parents, this felt like a true father's love, like God's love basically, which I couldn't experience at home, no matter how much my parents loved me. And so I said yes to that. So since age 7 I was expecting this for my future. And this was also why I wasn't interested in relationships, and kept myself away from that kind of thing as well. So on the right hand side is 2009, The Blessing. It's kind of fulfilling my vision, which is really cool. So there's things like this that happen in my life that is just blows everything out of the water, it's just total beyond confirmation, It's just, yeah, so what can I say? Also in school, there was one day where I had 3 fights in one day, and I won all of them. I didn't fight before, I didn't try to fight because I never wanted to fight. I was really introverted, so I wasn't interested. But on this one day, one person insisted, because my younger brother and this other guy's younger brother had a conflict. So he came to me and he said, James, you sort out your younger brother. And I said, no, you go and do it. I said, you can talk to him directly, you have my permission. I'm not interested in fights. If he caused a problem, then he's responsible for it. And because I also didn't know if he did cause it. It's just someone coming to me telling me that he did, but it could have been the other guy and he lost and just told his brother that my brother did it. So I said no, but he was insisting. And he ended up punching me in the face in the classroom. And this was before the teacher came in. And this was a really funny moment because I was sitting on the chair and he was standing up. So he had a perfect swing to my face, like full force. And in that moment, I remembered some advice that my mother gave me, which I thought was really rubbish. I came back from school when I was younger and I was getting bullied in school. And my mother told me, just ignore it, James. Just ignore it. I'm like, yeah, that's crap. Thanks very much. And, but when this guy was already swinging his fist, I had the flashback to this memory of my mother telling me, just ignore it. And so, nothing else, no other option, because this guy's swinging, okay, I'll ignore it. So I just put my mind somewhere else. He punched me, and I felt no punch. And then I just continued to look at him in the face with no reaction, and the whole classroom was totally silent. It was awesome. And because he invested everything in his punch, right? It had no effect, and so he ended up just leaving the room, and everyone else was like amazed. And James, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, of course. So, but because of that, another guy wanted to fight me. So, okay, well, James is actually really tough, and I'm going to have a fight. So he tried to fight me at lunchtime. And I did these kind of moves, like martial art moves. I was like dodging out of the way, and I just found it a little bit easy. In a way, I thought he was quite slow. And I never had any training before, but I did these like circular motions to get away from him. And I was being influenced by the spirit world at that moment. And so I won that fight, and again he tried to fight me again at home time. In the school, right, there's a 1/4-mile long drive, and there's 800 students. So usually when there's a fight, it happens in the middle of the drive, with 400 students at both sides. It's difficult for the teachers to get in the middle to stop it. So anyway, he tried to do it again, and it was more severe, but I did to him what he did to me, and I just did it a bit stronger and kind of won the fight. I actually got suspended from school for 2 weeks, but my mother didn't mind because I stuck up for myself. But the circular motions, was then seeking martial arts. I was trying to find a martial art that had these motions that I was using. And I tried karate, taekwondo, and jiu-jitsu and other various things, but none of them had these kind of motions that I felt like they felt when I used them that day, until I joined the movement and I found one wado. Right? And that's exactly what I used. It's brilliant. And that's also from the spirit world. True Father taught spiritually. He taught it to Master Han, who's the first teacher, and that's also why True Father mentions one wado. It was the only martial art he mentions by name in his autobiography, and I think he mentions some others too, but he goes into more depth about one wado. And also in the new Chambu Mugyong, there's a section in there about one wado, and I helped to with the proofreading for that before it was released, so I knew it was coming. I was very excited about it because there's a lot of really good content in there. And I also have some content which is not in there as well, so I'll be releasing that on the website I made, worldonewado.com. So I'm going to be putting these kind of things there. Yeah, so that's another experience I had when I was younger, before I even knew about the church, and then later found these kind of things. So when I was 12, we still have enough time. When I was 12, in my house, my parents were arguing and shouting outside to each other, having bad fights and stuff. And my younger siblings were crying because they're too young really to kind of grasp it. My older brother left the house. He was fed up and he left the house. And I was comforting my siblings, actually, kind of parenting them really. And I was asking my parents in my mind, why are you fighting? And I could see around them hundreds of ancestors, all couples also fighting, going back thousands of years. And so in that moment I understood my parents more than they understood themselves. And then I felt really alone, like I had no teacher anymore, and no one who can guide me in this kind of experience that I'm having. So I felt incredibly isolated from, I feel like to say isolated from myself because I had no one to help me understand myself. Anyway, so that's why I eventually left home, because I wanted to find people who could teach me. But then in that moment, because I felt alone, I cried out for help in my mind spiritually. And that night a spirit came to me and he said, I can teach you what you want to know. Do you accept? And I said yes, because it's my only option. So I went for it. He was a tall, dark, shadowy figure, which, as you know from the principle, is an evil spirit, but I didn't know. So then the first thing he did after I accepted his tuition was he started to stab me in my stomach with a long sword. So like a full-length sword. And I was in my bed when he came to me as well, and so I was lying down and he was repeatedly stabbing me in my abdomen. And then that night I was crying my eyes out. I was in extreme pain. And even my younger brother, who, because of problems at home, he was unable to fully express his emotions, but even he was shouting, James, you okay? And he was crying because of me. And even he shouted down to my mother downstairs, and my mother said, yeah, shut up, just go to sleep. My mother's actually good, sometimes I make her sound bad, but my brother actually defended me as well to my mother, saying you need to come up and help James, but she didn't do it. But then I also think if she did come up, then she would have interfered with what I needed to do to achieve something. Because eventually, 8 hours later, in the morning, after I was even considering throwing myself down the stairs several times to knock myself unconscious because the pain was so extreme. But then each time I crawled to the top of the stairs, I felt I could snap my neck or something, so that risk was too high, and I also had this influence of self-preservation which was stronger than anything else. So even though I had that pain, I couldn't risk that. So eventually I went back to my bedroom and I just lay back on my back and I said, the only thing I didn't say until this point was, I accept your pain. And then he disappeared. So from the principle, I understand this is about gaining the dominion over the spirit, and it details this in the principle too. When you willingly endure the suffering caused by an evil spirit, you'll ascend to a higher sphere of benefit, and the spirit will also ascend to that sphere of benefit. And also, in order to gain dominion over the spirit, basically to have him as my tutor, then I needed to experience his pain and overcome it. So, thanks to the principle, I can understand this, exactly what happened and what was going on. The first thing he taught me was how to fly spiritually. In the spirit world, just repetitive training for years, and this was the only time my mother could get me to go to bed on time or early. So I would just go to bed and do training in the spirit world, and he would teach me how to fly and just repeat. Like, that film, with Tom Cruise, the one where he's a soldier? No, he's a soldier, and he just dies, repeat. It's basically like a computer game, you keep trying to achieve something, you die, but then you get back to the start of the level, and then because you know the course, you get through that part much easier, and then you start again progressing. And it was like that with the training. He took me to a local park, which had a hill, and I would stand at the top, and he would just point down the bottom of the hill, and so I would just follow his pointing, and I'd run down, and I'd try to copy the birds, like I'd flap my arms and stuff, because I thought that's how I'd fly. And then eventually later I realized there's no air in this place where I am. I didn't really understand spirit world, but I kind of thought a dream or something. So then I was able to fly without flapping my arms, and I could hover a bit, and then I could have total freedom. And then that was with no one around, but then the tutor started to bring people into the environment as well, like people from the village where I lived. And then I had no confidence because it's in front of people, so I have to start all over again and learn how to do it in front of people. And then I could do it in front of people, and then he brought in my mum, my siblings, and then I couldn't do it. So I started again. So it was like, and each time I ran down the hill, if I tripped up and I hit the ground before, like just as he hit the ground like this, I would reappear at the top again, and he's there pointing. And it's just repeat. So when I moved to my father's house, after I moved out of my mother's house when I was 15, and I lived with my father till I was around 16 or 17, I had so many experiences. I would also go from my father's house to school, which was a bus journey that took 40 minutes, and I used to do that twice a day. And one day I was reading a magazine on the bus, and there was an article inside about how to have an out-of-body experience. And this magazine was called The X Factor, so not like the talent show, it's more like X-Files, but it's a spin on the X-Files. My mother used to get this when I was younger. She noticed I expressed an interest in this. So there was a detailed description, like with pictures about how to have an out-of-body experience. And so when I got back to my father's house, he wasn't there because he was in work. I went to my bedroom and I followed the instructions. I had this great out-of-body experience where I went through the floors of the house and I could see the ceiling, and I flew off to the horizon, and it was nice. But then a couple of years later, when I was living in my own place and I had a party with some friends, we were talking about spiritual things, and I said, yeah, there's a magazine, check it in my drawer to have a look at these instructions. They brought the magazine, and there was no instructions, it wasn't in there. It was like it was erased or something. So, the article was there. Is the sound still on? Because I can't hear any reverb. Yeah? Okay. So the article was still there. It was the middle page article, but then these instructions in the box, which was in the top corner, were no longer there. Understand that how you want. I wrote down the instructions. I've got a picture of it on my laptop, and it's just based on breathing. You expand your spirit body, and then you contract to become tinier inside yourself, and then you expand again, fill your environment in your room, and bring down tiny inside yourself, then back to your body size, and then imagine standing up. And that's basically how it works. And I spent as much time as I could doing it really slowly, and visualizing every aspect of the room that I was filling and inside myself. And even if you feel like you've gotten the smallest that you can get, then get smaller and really push yourself. And that's how it worked for me. So that's one way. I've got the slide. I could probably share it with Pastor Michael, and he could, I don't know, maybe make it available if it's okay. I don't know. So okay. Yeah. So then I went to university when I was around, I don't know, 20s, something like that. And this was a challenging time for me. I didn't do a lot of university work. I did my final, coursework for the first year. My tutor told me it was the best piece that she had, but I had no other coursework at all. I just did the animation because a lot of the rest was theory, and I wasn't interested in theory. I just wanted to do the animation. And also I was having a lot of spiritual experiences that were distracting me, problems with my family as well. I was criticizing them for not understanding me. I actually realized now that how could they understand me really at that time. There's loads of weird stuff happening. I have a picture here so I could show you about my time in the uni. Maybe it's this one. Yeah. So this is an example. I saw the whole uni. This was one time when I was flying really high above the university, spiritually, of course. And I could see all of the rooms in the university, or the dormitories, had their own expression of the person's spirit world, right? The person who was occupying the room. So, for example, the one on the left is fire, so they have really hot temper, a very angry person, and really intense emotions. The second one is water, so it feels like they're drowning. It's probably from some kind of confusion, intellectual or I'm not too sure on that. They have some different descriptions, but the flowery one as well, that's just a really nice person, kind of, just really bubbly person, had good upbringing with parents and just a nice, kind of soft person. The brick one is someone who tries to keep them isolated from people, introverted, avoiding people, they're bricking themselves in from the world. The one on the right, which has got really black spikes, really sharp, and they feel like pinpoint pricks. If you walk through the room, it's like you're getting pricked all the time with, if a needle is at the sharpest point, you need it to be the most painful. That's what they're like. But this is pornography, and these kind of bad jokes, maybe someone's trying to be a bit edgy, a bit on the edge of humor, and they make jokes about, just wrong things. I won't say too much because they're too young people, but so then the bottom one as well is feces. That's also similar kind of humor. So you can imagine the kind of jokes that they might make, very bad mind. The next one with the cracked windows. So the universe around them is broken. They live in total contradiction with the universe, and it can't support them at all. The next one is foggy. So this person whose mind is cloudy and they have no sense of direction. Maybe the ideology is confused, or they just are in conflict with themselves. The next one is ropes, and this person tells too many lies. So they're tying themselves in knots, and they try to get out of their problems by telling more lies, and it just makes more knots. It's difficult to untangle them. And the next one is kind of like a sewage thing. I've got another picture about sewage, and it's a mixture of different things, I would say toilet humor, like the feces one, and also just someone who's really low and they really don't know where they are. They're even in the sewers, and they think that's a good place to be. Because they see someone who might be lower than them, but they can't see anyone higher, so they think they're the best. Yeah, I've got another picture about that, but it's okay. Yeah, so this is more like the night that it was actually a night because through him working with me, I got to understand more about his personality and his history. So he was a knight from the Dark Ages, like from England, and when he died and he turned to face the spirit world, the light was too bright for him, and he couldn't handle it. So he turned around, and he needed some common base on the earth to come to, because in order not to go to the spirit world, he needs some kind of earthly attachment. And he came to me, right, transcended time and space, and he found that common base in me. I was seeking like any kind of help, basically. So when he came, he was unclear. He wasn't open about who he was or anything. So I just said he can teach me. And actually, I was turning more into him as time went on. You know, actually, this was my last battle before I joined the movement. When I was finally able to move him on, then literally a couple of weeks later, that's when I met my spiritual father in the convent. And this is the reason why I couldn't approach him 2 years before, because this guy was still influencing me, and he knew that if I approached him, then he would have to go. But I was still too attached to him the first time. So I think I don't have a Wi-Fi connection at the moment, but maybe tomorrow when I get it, I can find a picture online, like on Facebook, because I got stuff there as well. It shows a picture of me when I joined it before as a goth. It's like, one day I thought, how long can I grow my hair? So I just let it grow, and actually got down past my bottom. Right, it was like really long, so I got really famous for that, where I was living. And it's really thick as well, really heavy when it got wet, when I washed it. So I put it in bubbles, like all the way down, and then I make it really wavy. And so, like when I joined, I just cut it like at my shoulders, and then I could have donated it to someone, but I didn't really think about it at the time. I dressed in black all the time, and I had these like sideburns. So it's totally different in my appearance. And also I would get angry very easily, because this guy was angry that I was actually getting closer to him moving away. And I went to a spiritual healing group that my other friend, also called James, he was also into martial arts and spiritual things, and we kind of met for a time. And it's like this, in the principle, it says that within a certain time period, God elects a certain nation and a certain people, and within a region he selects the best people, and then he selects out of the Cain and Abel, the able, basically. So this is kind of what it was like with me. So we were both kind of like at the top. Basically, we were both famous in Wales, in our region, for doing these kind of things. And I was also invited to give talks at spiritual churches, and I would have a standard, when I give messages. I don't give messages anymore because they really don't help. But I would make a condition. I'd say, I need your name, like your first and last name of the spirit. I need the age that you died and the occupation the person in the audience will remember you by. And each time I set that condition, I would get that information. And when I gave it to the audience, only one person put their hand up. And that's totally different to everyone else who says, there's an old man here with grey hair, and he's like, everyone sticks their hands up because they all know that kind of person who, it's gone, right? So I could do that repeatedly, and people were amazed at me. So I was kind of like at the top in my region, and this guy was as well, but he was much more into his martial arts than the spiritual things, and I was much more into the spiritual things than the martial arts, so I think that's why God focused on bringing me more. And he also had the opportunity. I kind of invited him, but he was like, no, I'm not interested, really. He researched it online, and he said, it's kind of weird stuff, and okay, never mind. I'll come back later when I got superpowers. So actually I went from being like this kind of top person to being like the lowest person when I joined, because when I joined I was at the lowest rank, really. I know there's not that kind of rank system in it, but I'm a new guy, right? So I felt like I didn't know anything at all, which was pretty cool. To move this guy on, he was killing for his king and country, which was his job, and he needed to provide for his family. This could have been just a good guy, right? But because he killed many people, then he was making a lot of bad, evil vitality elements and also resentment from the families of people he killed. So when he died, actually he had an evil spirit, just due to his job. And there's similar jobs today. So when I went to the spiritual healing group, that's why I mentioned it, my friend invited me, James, who was already going, he invited me to it as a private thing. Then this one of the spiritual healers, like the master, was healing me, and this guy with a sword tried to chop his head off. So my friend told me that, and he told me, yeah, you need to sort that out, because it's a problem. So I said, okay. So I spent 3 months focusing a lot on this guy, and initially I didn't intend it to be 3 months, that's how long it took. When I started doing it, he was really fighting me, and it was in a place like a church on the top of a hill where I started. Actually, that's where my friend told me about it. So I went in the church yard, and I don't recommend it anyway, but at that time I did it. And I sat down under a tree and I started focusing love on him, and then he started strangling me around my neck. Even I had a physical sensation, I couldn't breathe. Then I realized this guy is not good, because he never expressed that kind of anger toward me before. So I thought he was just helping. So then I realized I had some kind of other purpose. So I continued that, and I just went for a full-on fight with him, sending him love, and eventually some love pierced his armor, and he liked it. And then he started fighting back and resisting. He's like, no, I don't want it. But then eventually started getting through to him, and he started appreciating it and accepting it. And then eventually he totally opened up to it, and he started receiving it totally. And then as I was going to visit my friend, and I went past this castle and church where it started, actually ended at that point as well. 3 months later, he was, an angel came to him, and he just wrapped his arm around the spirit, who was at this point just totally white and shining bright. And he said, okay, it's time to go now. And then they went to the spirit world. And he didn't say thank you or anything, because he was just exerting gratitude that he didn't need to turn around to say it, I could just see it. And then I felt totally different, It's like I had this sensation that I thought was myself, and now it's gone. Like, so who am I now? I had to start over again. So, but that was really an amazing experience, because I realized how people are influenced by spirits and they don't realize it. Especially people that I can relate to in a similar situation, they think they have this personality or these interests, but they're actually being influenced by some spirits who had, it's reflecting their interests. Like, I was into heavy metal, right? And this guy's armor made of heavy metal. He had long hair, so it was the style at the time. I didn't really have any barbers. Could cut with a sword, I suppose, but so it was all reflecting him. And now that he went, I felt a lot lighter and kind of soft, almost like half myself in a way. That was when 2 weeks later I was able to meet my spiritual parents again, and I joined the movement. So it was really the last battle. True parents have actually said that. Also, I wanted to mention, if I say true parents say, you don't have to believe me just because I say it, because I intentionally try not to believe someone if they just say true parents said, because maybe they did, maybe not. But if I do say that, it's because I'm sure I've read it. But again, please don't just believe me. They said that we can liberate spirits ourselves, but we don't as well. Maybe we don't know how to, or we're not strong enough. We don't have the proper foundation or the right conditions to do it as effectively as it can be done in Champion. Right? Like, this guy one spirit took 3 months, but I liberated all my ancestors, and my wife has. And I did all mine in one workshop, and my wife did in 2 workshops, and that's loads, So that's it's like a really fast track way, it's a shortcut to really having a stronger foundation. Yeah, I'll go into more about that as well, ancestor liberation and blessing, also later. And so the process of joining the movement, finding my spiritual parents again, was the conclusion of 12 years of searching. I was 24 when I met my spiritual parents. And several things happened, like the person I told you about who was crying, who told me that it would be in a convent. And also, I was riding my bike in the town, so I used to like riding bike, freestyle, mountain biking, and doing street tricks and those kind of things. I still like it, actually. I use the council bikes in Dublin, the government bikes. You just pay €20 and you can have them for the year, and they maintain them. It's a really good system. I'm used to the weights on them now, and the balance, so I can do some tricks. I can, like waiting at the traffic lights, I can just balance, don't need to put my foot down, and just these little things, you can challenge yourself, and it's just a great way of developing mind-body unity as well. So I was riding a bike through town, and it broke, so that I took a different direction home. And in this direction, there were some Christians who were offering free prayers on the street, and they had a banner as well, free prayers. So I went to them, and I felt it was appropriate to go to them, and they prayed, and they told me that in 2 weeks, I would join a church. And they probably thought, like, they meant their church, But at that time, because I was also seeking absolute truth since I was 12, when I had this experience of my parents' spirit world, I asked myself, what do I need to fix this and this kind of problems in the world? And the voice told me, you need truth. But I realized I don't need truth, I need absolute truth, because like today's snowy, a few days ago it was hot. So that's truth, but it's relative. So I thought, I need absolute truth, and that's what I was searching for since I was 12. So when this guy told me I'd be joining a church, actually my research into various religions and science and things that I've been doing since then had led me to the point where I was beyond a religious viewpoint. I could understand the context of religion and history, like it says in the principle about God's providence, and I really felt like I didn't need a religion, but spirituality, yeah, but not so much religion. But at the same time, because of my search for truth, absolute truth, I had developed a sensitivity to what is true and what's not true. So when he told me that, I knew it was true. So I had this kind of two things going on. So I went with it. And then I went on this course. And the morning that I was to go on the course, I prayed to God and I said, is this really where I should be going, like today? And then he put like a giant rainbow in the sky. And I walked to the train station. It was a 40-minute walk. It's another, it comes up all the time. So at the time I lived in the middle of nowhere basically, and it was really nice. I went there intentionally. And so a 40-minute walk, and the rainbow just got stronger for 40 minutes. It didn't disappear, it got brighter, and it was really nice. So I took that as a sign. And on the last day of the 7 days of this seminar, my spiritual father and I, who were already kind of connected then, we were crossing the bridge over the train station, and I was going to tell him about a rainbow that I could see on the platform. But then he pointed it out to me. He said, James, look at that rainbow. It's not moving. It was actually stuck on the platform. We were crossing, right? And because the rainbow is like from refraction in the raindrops, right? So when you move it, it moves. But this wasn't moving. And we both saw it. So I felt that was a correlation with the one that I saw before, and it was just a really good sign. So when I went on this course, I've got a picture of him actually. We had this orientation meeting at the start of the course, and there are so many people in the group, and we all sat in a circle. Okay, this one. Yep. So we all sat in a circle for the orientation on the first day, and I saw this guy, super bright, in contrast to everyone else who was just totally dark. Probably they weren't dark, but just because he was there and outshone everyone. And yeah, totally bright. You know, I recognized him. I didn't remember, but I totally recognized him. Right? And I felt like I need to go to this guy. So after the orientation, I just sat next to him and I said, I recognize you. So, and he said, I recognize you too. And we just started laughing. So he's a second gen, blessed child, and you know, a lot younger. And he told me he wasn't trying to be shiny. But so, but he, like again, you know, I mentioned earlier, the first time I met him, or I saw him the first time then, so bright, so young and so bright. And a lot brighter than even the oldest people you can see who had meditated and have done spiritual things their whole life. Like who were first gen, right? But now this is totally different. So I was like, yeah, who are you, where are you from, what's your name, what you do, yeah, tell me about you. And I was hassling him until I wouldn't leave him alone. Yeah, he's got his responsibility, his freedom, free will, yeah, his choice to, he decided to talk to me. He did at one point. He was trying to avoid me a bit because I was being a bit weird, you know, I was kind of stalking him really. So, you know, I even got like, when we went for our meals, right, I even got my plate and I sat next to him as well, and I just faced him like they're eating. So, yeah, at one point, he must have had enough, right, because he turned around and said, okay, James, stop it. Do you believe in angels? And I said, yeah, I do, but they don't have wings. And I said, okay, right, let's have a chat. Because it's also Japan's teaching as well, I think. I'm not sure if I read that anywhere, but it's also biblical. You know, if you look at the earliest Bible paintings of angels, they don't have wings. You know, it's a fairly recent phenomenon, or depiction of them. So that got his attention anyway, so he started taking me seriously, asked me what I know and stuff like that. So I had already brought basically what I know, all my notes from my studies over the 12 years, because I was already aware I was going on this course to meet someone to change my life because of the various signs that I'd received, like the bike broke and the guys told me I'd join a church in 2 weeks and this course was in 2 weeks. And the person who told me it would be in a convent, she was crying until I said yes. So I already knew I was going there. I also asked God and he gave that rainbow thing. So I also brought a picture which I drew, which is the 4-position foundation. Basically I drew that also before I joined. And I showed my spiritual father and he said, that's the 4-position foundation, and he showed me in a book. So that's the only place I've seen it, was in the DP. I made a list of all dual characteristics, you know, like left, right, up, down, male, female, all those kind of things. I knew it's basically the red parts of the principle, which took me 12 years to find. So then when I joined and I realized how much more there is, I'm like, you know, how difficult it is to find that. And now there's so much more. Like, and even the whole principle is just basic stuff. Yeah, the 7 days was really amazing. For example, if we were in a room and we didn't want to be disturbed, then no one would come in. If we wanted people to join us or we didn't mind, then they would come in. This one guy who came in, this was not a movement event, right? So other people came and they were going out to smoke and stuff like that. And I also had some cans of alcohol as well. But this one guy came in, he had a can opened and a cigarette in his hand. And he sat down, put them down, was chatting with us, and he totally forgot about his drink and his smoke. Like for hours. And also on the third night, I had this inspiration to ask my spiritual father for the song that he wrote. I just felt like asking him for that for some reason. So he showed me a song and I read it. I'm like, doesn't feel like the one. And he had no idea, so he went to the bathroom, I went to his room. And so anyway, I went back to his room and he brought out a song that he had written called Open Doorways. And he was really rushing to finish the song before this workshop because he was asked to make some kind of thing, but he was really investing in this song that it wasn't really for the workshop or the seminar, but he really felt he needed to write this really quickly. And it was all about my life, like this is your open doorway, this is your moment, don't miss it again. So it's really like straightforward. And I also had a spiritual vision of the unification logo when I was in his cell, because in a convent you call the room a cell, right? Then he was on his bed, sitting there. I was just kind of sitting on the floor a little bit, because there's more space there anyway. I've got longer legs. And so, yeah, I went into this weird trance thing, and it must have been obvious because when it came out of it, he asked me what happened. And I saw the unification logo in a red color, like really tiny, and then it comes really big and past my face. So he asked me what happened, and I described it. It's like a red circle with these 4 lines coming out at these corners, and other little lines, and these 2 things on both sides, which are the arrows. And there's a dot in the center, and it's like a square, and it's like. So then he brought a wallet out, and he had the sticker on his wallet of the unification logo. So yeah, that's the one. So that's also like confirmation for me and for him as well, that these things are real. And he told me later that he was calling his wife and his father to say, there's this guy who having all these weird things happening, and with spiritual experiences, and he was reporting every night, saying exactly what was happening. And he's like, yeah, they have to bring him back. So, then there was also another guy who was kind of looking in through the windows at my spiritual father. It's like a bit weird. He was like a real stalker. And so I know he was kind of really attracted to him for some reason. And so I think he even came in and asked the course tutors about my spiritual father. And they thought, yeah, it's a bit strange. So then my spiritual father asked me, what is my opinion about this guy, like spiritually. So I told him, yeah, you need to like make sure you don't go near him, like just tell him to go away. So then he turned around and he told the course tutors, like James has these things, he's a bit intuitive about this, and you should ask this guy to leave. So yeah, they did. They told him to go away, or they called the police, or something like that. They told him like to go away. And at the end of the course, everyone was crying, like even the course teachers. They said they held so many, like 170 workshops or something like this. And they said none were like this before, and they were really like grown men in tears, because it was such a beautiful course. And yeah, my spiritual father and I believe it's because of our meeting. We had such a good meeting, and so many good spirits were mobilized to make that happen. And even my spiritual father didn't go a couple of times, because when he called first, the course was full. They didn't need any more musicians. So he thought, okay, I won't go. Then they called him back, and they invited him, because there was one place, but then he had something else which he was doing, and he said no. But then that stopped, and then they called him back again, and so he said, okay. And we kind of talked about it, and that correlated with when I went to the person who asked me to do this course. Because initially I said no. And so then that's when it was full, and then when I said yes, then it was available for him, and it was really both mixed in with each other. So on the 7th day, he asked me to drink some holy wine. I said no thanks, because I don't drink alcohol. But he said, this is like a blessing, and I could perceive, yeah, of course, it's great. So I did it. And then we went to his house, him and his wife's house, and I lived with them for 6 weeks until they kicked me out. Yeah, so they really took me in, and into the family, literally. And I've lived with a few blessed families since I've joined as well. They really took me into the community, and it really strengthened my relationship. And the first night I was with them, I met your father spiritually, and he gave me a big hug, and he said, welcome to the family. So yeah, so I think the spirit realm that he met me in was kind of grey at the time, because I still was not really, I wasn't blessed or anything, I wasn't really at that level really, so he kind of came to me in a way. It was this kind of middle region in a way that was set up. So yeah, also, I'm not sure how many of you have seen my website or YouTube channel yet. There's a few videos on my YouTube channel. Also, it's mine and my wife's. My wife couldn't come at the moment. She's taking care of like celebrations in a way for her father's passing. Her parents are blessed as well. They received the blessing on the earth, but so her father had the sangwa, but also in Albania, where my wife is from, they also do certain celebrations, and they have quite a lot of parties, like for all kinds of occasions. So, yeah, she's taking care of that as well. Yeah, I was going to show you a picture of experience I had before I joined the movement. And I think this one. Yeah. No, that's not it. Actually, I don't think I drew a picture, but this is what I saw. So, this was in the place where I was living when I went to do the course for the music experiment. So, how long can people stay? Because I just went down. I don't want to. Is there a time limit for anyone? Yeah. Okay.
Some people have kind of a long drive to go home.
Okay. Do you have any time really that I should finish, or should I just continue until you say stop? I just want to be sure, you know.
How are people, like, another half an hour? Who's got to leave the earliest or soonest? I know the Nais have a long drive to get back. When were you thinking to go back? Tonight? Half an hour. So can we finish that in half an hour?
Okay.
Like 30 or something.
Yeah, so half an hour.
Okay.
30 minutes.
All right. Thanks. So yeah, before I joined, I was praying to meet the Holy Spirit, and this was during the time when I was fasting and praying a lot. And yeah, this lady came to me exactly as in this picture, True Mother. I didn't know at the time, but she came to me, a young Asian lady in a beige colored dress with a black hair up in a circle. That's how I describe it. I described to my friends at the time. None of them had any idea. I prayed to meet the Holy Spirit, but I met a lady who came to me very gracefully and gently, and she touched my hand with her hand and whispered advice in my ear, because I was actually praying for guidance for my friend, James, who asked me to help him. So I did this for him, and she came to help me with that. But then obviously I was a little bit surprised, because I thought I was going to meet, I thought the Holy Spirit is some kind of cosmic cloud or some energy thing. I think is the general perception. So even when I joined, I didn't recognize that this was True Mother, because when I joined, she's much older physically. It was only a few months later when I saw inside the tradition book this picture, and then I told my spiritual father, yeah, that's the lady I saw, and it's True Mother. So I thought, thanks very much. It's if true parents say that if you pray to see God in the spirit, or if you've got the spirit and you look for God, you're going to see true parents, and it's true now. So, many people have seen God as a ball of light, and there's a good reason for that, which I'll go into a bit scientifically probably tomorrow, I think. And I also experienced that, like with the vision for the blessing when I was younger. But I also have experiences of true parents when I've seen God through true parents, like at the 50th year anniversary celebration in Europe. So actually, that's for another talk. Actually, tomorrow, I think. Yeah. So I'll go into that more tomorrow about how God looks, like the appearance of God.
That's Saturday.
Saturday. Okay. Yeah. So there was also about God. Through my research, like when I was younger, this was before I joined the church, I had come to a point where I had enough knowledge or understanding to know that God exists. Right? If you really do the research out there, there is enough knowledge, even without researching everything, which obviously I haven't done, to understand that God exists. Like scientists have calculated the possibility of a hydrogen atom coming into existence by chance. And hydrogen, I think, is the first element, and it's the most abundant element in the universe. And it was so far beyond chance, like statistically, that it's impossible to come into existence by chance. And even now we know more about the early conditions of the universe, it's even less likely to be to come into existence through chance. So even that one statistic is a very strong implication that it must have been a result of a creative act. But at that time, although I had this knowledge, I had no experience of God. So I really couldn't say for sure. So I challenged God, and I explained this to God, hypothetically, because I was trying to have some experience, and I said, this is your only chance, please show me now, or I'm not going to ask again. So I went to sleep, and that night, and I had this really mad experience in the spirit world, where first I was in a group of thieves on horseback, so I was a thief in the spirit world, and so we went to rob an old lady's house in the middle of the woods. Like you do, right? It's normal somehow. So I was just kind of observing. I was thinking, these are figments of my imagination, right? I'm having a dream. It's a weird dream, but I'm having it. So then they robbed the person, and the leader of the group was angry at me for not participating. And then his response to that made me realize it's not a dream. This is something different, because actually my dreams don't behave that way. So I was a bit more quiet, and he also put me at the back of the group because I was naughty. So he punished me, put me at the back, so I had a good view on the group as well, so I could study them a bit. And they were quite ignorant. They didn't really know what they were doing, but the leader was a bit more aware of what was happening. So he was aware that it was a spiritual thing, kind of leading a group of people who were not as aware. So we were looking for another place, and we came to this temple in a clearing in the forest, and then there was only a temple and no clearing. It was just all white around it. And in front of the gate in front of the temple was a gate, and it was just a gate in the middle with two fences either side. Can I draw a picture now on the board? Do you have any pens? So I didn't draw a picture of this before. So.
Hopefully this works.
Thank you. Okay. So it's got a particular shape, that's why I wanted to show. It's kind of rounded. Okay, so there's a rounded shape, and these were not really holes, but they were kind of looked like holes, but they weren't holes anyway. And you could go around the gate, or you could jump over, you could go through the gate, so it was very easy to go through the gate. Many of the thieves went around, up, or whatever, as they wanted. And then they went to the temple, and so the temple had a series of steps. And there were pillars at the top. And then there was a triangle top and a doorway with curtains either side. Okay, so the temple looked similar to that. And so they went around and everything, then they went in through the curtains, in through the main door, and as they wanted, and they went inside and they got what they wanted. They wanted gold, they got gold, and anything, So, but actually, I was looking for something else, right? And on top of the temple, there was a picture which I was drawing for 2 weeks before I had this experience. Okay. So I had that picture. I'll just draw it a little bit more accurately. Okay, so there were 3 spheres, and then each 2 spheres were connected by an infinity loop. Okay, so, and if it was like a 3-dimensional thing, then it'd be kind of going in and out and all these kind of things. And I was drawing this for 2 weeks before I had this experience, just by kind of doodling. And I would sometimes draw like some pictures, just get inspired by it. And then I saw it on here, and I saw it as the seal of the creator. At least at that time, it's kind of just what came to my mind. And it seemed like God's temple in a way, but maybe it's not actually God's temple, it's just like a symbolic thing. And an interesting thing I noticed later about this, actually a couple of years later, was that although this is two-dimensional, you can get 3D shapes from it. For example, if you trace the outline of that, then you get a cube in the middle. So I think that's really cool, so understanding how to get 3D from 2D and stuff like that. So you can also get the Star of David if you connect these points like that. There's loads of stuff you can do with it. So the leader of the group was still this side of the gate with me. He was more aware, and he was a little bit afraid of going in because it was too bright for him as well. And because I was naughty earlier, then he wanted to punish me, and he told me to go first. And I thought, thanks very much, because I want to go in for my own reason, rather not for you. So I got to this part, and I could sense a different way into the temple that was not visible. So I was kind of waiting for this to come, and a small doorway came up in the steps. And this doorway, it just went on to infinity. Right? If you have the sides, the walls, and the ceiling, then it just looks like it's a dot in the background. So you can't really do a good picture of it on a whiteboard, but it just goes all the way in. And also this lady came to me in a blue dress, and she invited me in. So I went there, and as soon as my foot went in the door, even though it was infinitely long, I immediately came out at the other end. It's amazing, it's like there's no distance. And when I described this to my spiritual father, he told me this was Damon, because I described it the same way with the blue dress, right? Not Mrs. Kim, but like the blue dress, right? It was Damon. So when I got to the other end, then I entered a room which had a row of benches. So these are like the church benches, the old wooden ones. Okay, and there were several of them. And so the room went in this way. There was a pillar in this corner, and another pillar. And the room went back that way. There was no end to the room that way. And also when more people came in, then more benches would appear, and they could sit on the bench and take their turn. But there's like no waiting time anyway, because there's no time and space.
So that was Damon himself?
Yeah, this was here who invited me in. And also, I was invited in, and there was a man sitting on a chair. He had a grey beard, old man, kind of looked like a typical Christian depiction of God, right? And if you look at it, he's like, yeah, that looks like God. But at least that's how I understood him at the time. So I thought there was a purpose for that, having this appearance and my understanding of the appearance. And there was another person on this chair. There was a woman, and they were talking. And there was also another person here. I had to wait second place. And there was a bookshelf on this wall with no books in it. But if you wanted to know something, you could put your hand in it, and then a book would manifest with all the knowledge about what you want to learn. So you could just read it in no time. So, I didn't actually do that because I wanted to speak with this guy. So my turn came, and I was chatting, and we were communicating without words, without speaking, just heart to heart, mind to mind, and could say telepathically, or just spiritually. And so he said, "Ask me a question." So in my mind, I was thinking, shall I ask something stupid or something profound? And he said, "Just ask me anything." So I asked, "How can you travel between dimensions?" So and he showed me. So funnily enough, there was a TV on this wall, like with a retractable stand, with a video player, and then he had a remote control in his hand from somewhere, press play. So on the screen, he showed me where there were different spheres, and each sphere represented a different dimension. So it could be a different dimension in time and space, right? So each of us are in a different dimension, time and space, because our coordinates are different, right? But it's in a shared dimension as well. Yeah, he told me these all represent different dimensions, and then in order to get from one to the other, one sphere to the other, then you have to follow this path of a single curve, and in order to get to the next place, you have to invest 100% to go, let's use that, to the middle point, and then he will take me the rest of the way. And that's how I understood about the human portion of responsibility before I joined the movement. So 100% effort to that point, and then God will take you the rest of the way. But also, every sphere was connected to every other one by a single curve, right? So you can get from any sphere or any dimension to any other one, and those lines don't touch, right? Because I didn't know that at the time really, but that's just what I learned from this experience. And a couple of weeks later, I shared this with my friend who was more of a scientist, and at the time he was an atheist. I changed him because of these kind of things. And he told me that the scientific term for this is called tessellating. Right, tessellating. And this is the only way to connect an infinite number of points without the lines touching or intersecting with a single curve. And I didn't know that, so this was new information that I received spiritually, and then it was confirmed physically. Okay, so these are the kind of things that I prefer to use when I talk to people about God, about spiritual things. So then after that, it's kind of stupid and profound, a bit. I could have asked, how do you save the world or something, But we went to this area, and there was like grass, and then we were just like rolling around in the grass and kind of pretending to be a lion and stuff like that, and just having a good time. And then I was asking, because the benches were getting filled up with people, and there were more benches, people were getting full, and I was saying, what about them, because they're waiting, and he said, yeah, don't worry, there's no time. So I thought, okay, cool. So we just had a nice experience rolling around, and then I woke up the next morning. I thought, yeah, that was unusual. So then I woke up at 7, and I remembered everything clearly. I never needed to write it down, because with these kind of things, just you'd never need to write them down. And I spent the next 4 hours convincing myself it didn't happen, because I'm like, I met God tomorrow. I didn't meet God because I didn't appreciate my worth or anything, my value. So I was like really trying to convince myself it didn't happen. So then, at the exact moment when I had made that actual decision, didn't happen, wasn't God, then I had a knock on the door from 2 Jehovah's Witnesses. I lived in this place, right? It's in the middle of nowhere for 2 years, and no one ever called on my door, except in this one moment. And they had this like Watchtower magazine, a little brochure, just like a 2-page brochure. And I invited them into my flat, because I'm like, okay, let's talk about God, let's talk about science and things, and what you believe, I can teach you something. But actually they were very strong, they weren't having any of what I was trying to do. And instead they were trying to show me a picture in the middle of an old man with a grey beard sitting on a chair, a depiction of God exactly as I saw him in this experience that night before. So, I kind of controlled my emotions until I asked him to leave, and then I'd start crying and stuff, and I left. Because that was just confirmation, like I was saying about this tessellating. Now I had this experience myself, and it's just undeniable. And I just totally surrendered. I'm like, okay, you've done your part. I have to do my thing now. And that was shortly before I joined the movement as well. And that's my experience of God, how I actually know God exists. And so I think a few more minutes. Are there any questions at all or anything about anything?
how do you take that theory and apply it to our daily lives in terms of furthering our spiritual quest toward our goal, toward where we need to be?
Yeah, I think it's not for that really, apart from,
Just illustration?
yeah, just to demonstrate how a person can receive new information spiritually, like information they didn't have before.
So it's a
And then-
conduit of information.
No, it's just tessellating. It could be any information. So you could have like information about something else, but if you didn't know it before, and it was revealed to you spiritually, and then you, for example, you look it up in Google, and then you find out that it actually exists, right? Then you know for a fact that your spiritual revelation is true, or is based in something that's true.
So it's just a demonstration to you, something you thought was actually proven to you to be true.
Yeah, that I found out later it is true. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, I could tell people this before, and it could be a theory, but because someone told me, yeah, this is true, and they gave me the name of it, then I have confidence, and I can tell people that this happened, and I can, you know.
So it's not a blueprint, a spiritual realm of how to move from here to there, whatever that is.
Well, it kind of reflects the human portion of responsibility, like the 100%. You know, if you invest 100%, then God will take you the rest of the way, because then you've invested your max. You know, so you can't invest any more, and therefore that's the condition for God to help you.
So it's the force of your own intention to get there that plays a role in this.
No, it's the action of doing it.
Doing it,
Yeah, it's the song. The road to heaven is paved with good intentions,
That's the road to
but
hell.
it's not. It's paved with good actions. That's different. Yeah. So, I don't know, just a picture for you to laugh at. When I was younger, I got some other ones. Yeah, that's one of the pictures when I was cute. So. Okay, I can describe a little bit about what else?
James, maybe before you finish up, you could talk a little bit about what you're going to be talking about Friday and Saturday.
Okay, yeah. So, yeah, good question. I'll get the schedule.
Schedule, yes, but also just the kind of things that you want to share about. And beyond the schedule, everyone's seen the well, most people here have seen the schedule.
Okay. I'll just get the topics as a reminder.
And also, the schedule has changed in the last 24 hours, so
Yeah.
I'll probably need to say something about that.
Okay. So, yeah, we're probably going to leave some things out. Maybe. What day is today? It's Thursday, right? Yeah. So I'm not too sure now because I'm traveling.
It's Thursday.
Okay, thanks. So, yeah. So yeah, basically everything's the same. The restoration in my family. It's based on a PowerPoint I made a few years ago, because I thought if the principle is true, then you should find it in my family. So I researched my family because I already recognized some patterns in my family. Like I'm a second son, my father a second son, his father a second son. So there's 3 generations. And also recognize patterns in the birth years as well. There's 28 years between my grandfather and my father, 28 years between him and me. And then I go into the next 28 years in my presentation. And 28 is 7 times 4, which is the 7 time periods in the 4-position foundation. So it's the purpose of creation accomplished over a certain time period. And it's very clear in my lineage how that manifests based on the principle. And there's loads more in there as well. Even happening now as well. And science and yeah, when we go for a hike, I could explain things about nature, some experiences I've had. Pardon? No, not okay.
Due to the it might snow tomorrow.
And Saturday.
Yeah.
We might be here till Monday.
Okay. So,
This is a good schedule, isn't it?
Yes.
and we've got loads of time, So, yeah, we can do some meditation training if we have time for that as well, and can describe how that works. Also, biologically how it works, because one of the main things which I emphasize is education, right? If we know how something works, then we don't question it, right? And we understand the process. So that puts to one, it erases any doubt, right? So then we can just put it into action. And so I'll describe some of the biology behind meditation, also specifically focusing on the placebo.